Is Expeditions a good game? Is it fun? Is it better than Scythe? Those are the questions we're going to be answering in this video today, so let's check it out. Expeditions, much like the game that is based on Scythe, is one of these games that when you first read the rulebook or it's explained to you, you're going to think like, wow, that's a lot to handle. So for that reason, I'm not just going to go through and read off kind of the rules or the main mechanisms for you. I'm just going to show you a couple quick sample turns here, because once you get into the game, the decisions you're making are actually pretty smooth. It's not too complicated once you get into gameplay. So I think you'll understand it pretty well just by seeing a few sample turns. So here we go. And here we have the game of Expedition set up. Down at the bottom here, we have this board, which has several spots that you'll put stars into as you accomplish different goals. And this is the way you're going to score most of your points throughout the game. Above that, we have all the spots set up that you'll be traveling to throughout the game. And I have two mechs out here, kind of a setup of a hypothetical middle game of a two-player game. In this example, there are many spots that have already been explored, but there are a few spots at the top here that have not been explored yet. As you can see on the red player's board, they already have 4 map tokens acquired. If they can ever get to a 5th map token, they'll be allowed to take one of their stars and place it onto that base camp down at the bottom. What they're going to have to do on this turn is move this cube to a new spot, either covering up move or covering up play. And then whatever spot you cover up is the action that you do not take. You'll be taking the 2 revealed actions each turn. And because on this turn, the red player really wants to explore a new zone to get that map token, we're going to move this cube over 1 spot to the right and cover up play, so they won't play a card, but they'll be allowed to move and gather. And we're going to choose to gather before we move. So the spot we're on right now says we get one of these blues and one of these oranges. So we're going to move down to our player board and move up those 2 tracks each 1 spot to show that we have gathered in this zone. And now we're going to take our move action. We can move anywhere 1 to 3 spaces away, and there's this tile right up here with a map token that we can explore and get that 5th map token. So we're going to move 2 spaces to the top left and explore that zone. To explore the zone, the red player is going to take that map token and place it onto their own player board. They have acquired that map token, and then we will flip the tile over. Now the blue player over here is really close to completing 4 different quest cards. When they complete their 4th quest card, they will also be able to place one of their stars onto the main camp. Now there's actually a quest card available out there on the board the blue player will be able to acquire and then complete that 4th quest. On their turn, they're going to try to acquire this card. So our blue player is going to move their cube to the play zone as well, because they want to move and gather. So he's going to move 1, 2, 3, and he's going to gather on this spot. And this icon here just means you can acquire one of the 5 cards you see out there. Now in the red player's last turn, they acquired their 5th map token, which will allow them to place a star onto the main camp and scoring endgame points. They have to move to a tile with this star and then perform a gather action to be able to place that star onto the base camp at the bottom. And now you see one of the core strategies of the game of Expeditions. On the last turn, they covered up the play spot so they can move and gather. Well, now they have to move the cube, so they cannot have another turn in a row where they move and gather. So what they're going to do on their turn is slide over to the right and cover up the gather action. This guarantees they can at least move to that tile and kind of think of it as claiming it. Once they're on that tile, no other player can step on that tile. So at least they know next turn they'll be able to take the gather action next turn and then be able to place their star. And now that they've moved, they're going to take their play action. Simply take a card from their hand and play. In this case, it's really simple. This card says gang in orange. So we're going to move our power up 1. Now the blue player's turn is a little simpler. They're simply going to move the cube to the right, so they will move and play a card on their turn. At the bottom of this card, it says if you place a yellow worker, you'll be able to complete a quest. So now that I place my yellow worker, I will be allowed to solve a quest. This quest right here says I must be in zone 5 to complete it. And since I'm in zone 5, I complete the quest. It says if I pay 1 guile, this blue, I'll be able to gain a power. Okay, with that kind of mental picture in your mind, let's talk about some of the gameplay. So first of all, here's this big, giant stack of cards, and there are item cards, there are quest cards, and there are meteorites. Kind of think of these as 3 different things you're trying to accomplish in the game. The quest cards are going to give you more victory points at the end of the game, so you probably want to go for a couple quests along the way, and the quests are tied to specific regions. So if you want to accomplish a quest, you might have to get to like tile number 11 or something. There are items and then meteorites, and kind of think of these both as like ways to upgrade. So for example, this item, like this card here, gives you the ability to gain a power every single time you refresh. You're going to get a little more strength every time you take a refresh turn. So if you use the upgrade items, you're basically going to make yourself stronger. But it's one of these games that as the turns kind of churn out, you're going to get kind of a focus. Maybe you're going to go for items. You're going to try to attach 4 different items to your mech because you'll be really powerful. You'll have basically 4 permanent always on effects on just your mech that no one else gets to do. Or maybe you go for the meteorites, and meteorites are focused a little more on end game score. They're going to give you like payouts during the game that you're going to get to keep for the whole game and then score at the end. As you saw from that kind of sample play, you have all these different zones out here. You might see this tile come out, and this has your upgrade. If you want to be the upgrade person, you need to clear off a spot that lets you go there and do the upgrade. So there's a little bit of strategy when you see tiles being explored, deciding which ones you want to fight battles on and clear off, because there's going to be another spot on here, right here, that's going to allow you to do the meteorites I was talking about earlier. If you really want meteorites, you're going to make sure one of these spots is cleared off for you to use. By the way, here's what those little corruption tokens look like. You're going to I dropped one. You're going to be placing these on the tiles when you reveal the new tiles you explore, and they'll give you a number like 4. You're going to spend 4 of the blue, which is Guile, to get rid of this off that card. Okay, I'm going to stop myself and explain more rules. I don't want this video end up becoming like a 30-45 minute video on how to play expeditions, but we're going to get into answering the questions, what's good about the game and what's not good about the game. Let's first answer gameplay. As you probably can already tell from my example turn and the way I'm talking about it, I think gameplay is really fun. It gives you some interesting things you want to do. There is some strategy in like where you want to leave your mech, where are you in range of going to spots you want to go to, but just that basic way you take actions where it's so smooth, where you slide over, you take all 3 actions, you're going to move, you're going to play a card, you're going to gather the spots you're on, but then every turn after that you just slide over and cover something. So you're going to cover up, move maybe, so you can only play a card and gather. The only real negative I have for gameplay is that it's a little more on the solitaire feel than the original was. I'm comparing this to the original, not compared to like a completely multiplayer solitaire game, but compared to the original Scythe, it's a little more like a war game where it is a Euro in disguise kind of. You're going out and you're fighting people. You can choose to just destroy someone if you want to try to steal their resources, even though you're going to get negative points to the popularity track. This one here, there's less affecting the other players. The biggest thing you're going to do, well, I won't say the only, but the biggest thing you're going to do is you're going to be landing on spots to say you can't put your mech here. So you might see someone else is going to go to like the spot that allows them to place one of their stars. So you might try to get there first. For me, that's a little bit of a negative because I like more player interaction. That's one thing that I love about Scythe is the players can really dictate how it goes. If someone wants to really go heavy on the combat, they can. You can also play a little more separate, like, you know, it's a little separate like Euro game, but there's always that kind of, you never know what's going to happen. This one here is just a little on the interaction. I'm not saying I don't like it. This gameplay for me is a definite check. This is a very, very fun game to play. I really like it. But that's one thing that if it was like the perfect game for Ryan, it would be a little more in your face, a little more things, a little more going on that you can compete over. I know lots of you out there listening to this thinking like, what are you talking about? I love it when games are just like more separate and people can't like mess you up or hurt you. If that's you, you probably will like this more than the original, especially if you played the original and thought it was a little too aggressive. I shouldn't say the original. It's not the original. Scythe is like based in the same world. If you've never played Scythe before, it's the same world as Expeditions. It's kind of like the theme is really cool of Scythe. We've kind of transported over to the world of Expedition, but it's not the same game. It's not a reprinting of Scythe. It's a completely separate game. Now, I just now said the T word, theme, but we're not quite ready to talk about theme yet. Let's first dive into some components. So the components of this game are amazing. They are so good. Like there are the mechs, which are pretty cool. Oops, I just almost dropped one. Sorry. Razor hand mech man, whatever you're like. Oh, razor hand mech man, that kind of works. So they're great. Like I showed you earlier, the tiles you play on are huge and nice and big, and just the quality of the components seem really good. The cards are really nice. They're very consistent. They're easy to understand. They're actually really easy to understand. First, you're always worried about these games like here's like 100 or something different cards that all have different text on them. I haven't had a lot of issue with interpreting them. The players I play with seem to do a pretty good job. That part's pretty simple, but also like the mechs are heavy. They feel good. If I had to change something though, honestly, the only thing I would do is make it all smaller. Like that's just convenience for me. If the box could be a standard side box so it fit on my shelf better, it's just more practical. And again, the tiles are big. They're almost too big. Like they're big enough that once you get everything spread out, I know it's really hard to fit on the camera, but you are just like looking at this board where the pieces are really spread out. So it's nice the tiles are big, you can read them, but because they're so big, they get put so far away from you. So if you're like on this side of the table and you're like, wow, that tile way over there that I have no chance of reaching, I want to go to number 17. The theme though, the theme is a little stupider than Scythe, at least for me. If you watch my tier list, my top theme video I made, I'm not a big fan of zombies, And Scythe, the original Scythe, is if you've never played it before, it's a very cool world. And that's what made Scythe one of the things that made it so popular, right? It's a very, very cool world where you're like, let's kind of do turn of the century where we feel like we're kind of in World War II, or sorry, World War One, but it doesn't feel like a World War One game because there are these mechs marching around, and we're just doing this small little conflict in this little tiny area where there's like the Russian people and also Germanic people, like these people around that area fighting for this land over there. We get to expeditions, and there's some disturbances and corruption about, and there's basically like zombies now, which it doesn't really hurt my opinion of the game at all. But when I first opened that, I was like, that's stupider. Sorry for saying the word stupider twice, but I'm not a fan of Unreal zombie stuff at all. I mean, not that I hate it, but it's just like, if you, I mean, okay, I do a little bit. I do hate it a little bit, but it's not bad. I can still absolutely love a game. But if I was picking a theme, I would never pick this theme, especially taking a theme that felt a little more like Earth, but with mechs. But now we're like, oh, there's some weird creatures in the weird forest. All right, and now for the question you've all been waiting for. Or maybe you haven't been, but whatever. I'm going to answer it anyway. Is it better than Scythe? And my answer is, it doesn't really matter. I mean, come on, guys. Like, Scythe is a top 15 game for me. I think on Board Game Geek right now, it's in the top 20. One of the greatest games of all time. So if you're only going to be happy with Expeditions, if it's better than Scythe and you love Scythe, you're probably going into for the wrong reasons. So if you're watching this review and you haven't played Expeditions, I would forget that question before you go into it, because it's probably just an unfair way to judge a game. Like, if you were like, I will like Expeditions if it's as good as Scythe, and I love Scythe. Like I said, some of the key, lots of the gameplay feels really different. Like, again, it's a little more going around, accomplishing missions. There's not the whole resource production. There's not near as much. This game has upgrading. Scythe is all about the upgrading. Also, Scythe is all about the variable player powers. Everyone has different mats that feel extremely different. This game has a lot less of that stuff. So if you love those things about Scythe, don't go in expeditions expecting Expeditions to do that. In a weird sense, now that I'm getting down to the end of this video, I'm realizing this is one of the easiest videos I've ever made. Like, this is just like a solid B+ or A- all around. A being like my favorite games of all time. This would be like, or a better way to do that, 1 out of 10. This would just be like a solid 8 to 9 game I really, really like. It doesn't crack into my favorite games of all time, but it's an easy review to do because other than the zombies, there's really not anything I dislike about this game. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. We are getting dangerously close to 1,000 subscribers. So thanks so much for checking out the video. I'll see you guys in the next one.